24 hours just to go over that. But good to see you in here anyway. And there's a little chat box down there somewhere, mate, that you'll be able to write things in, because we'll see how we go. As I say, there's about 30 people registered. So it'll be interesting to see who actually turns up. I do think what happens is, and we'll find this out, I guess, at the end of this, but if you've registered and you don't show up, I think it might send you an email letting you know if there's a recording available, and it tells me it's recording something away from this immediately in the next 24 hours that you'll be able to do with this information, at least taking some actions. And I'll explain why I think that's important. And then we'll kind of go from there, I guess. It's going to be fairly... I haven't made it too long. I was up quite early this morning, as Michelle would know, because I was getting messages off her who was also up. So I was up pretty early just going through all this content, because I like to prep stuff. I don't like to... I give these talks all the time. I do it in front of corporate groups and whatnot. Every week I'm at least giving one talk. But I still don't like to just wing it and ad-lib stuff. I like to go over it again and again. And I've actually never delivered what I'm delivering to you guys tonight. Now, I've spoken at bits and pieces of this in the podcast, but it's not something that I've given heaps and heaps of attention to. I've actually never in one sitting the way I'm doing it today. So let's quickly run through this stuff. And I just want to give you my mindset behind the whole concept of the New Year's revolution. So some years ago, I kind of got a bit off put by the whole New Year's resolution idea, and just the idea of a revolution, which when you look it up in its hardcore terms is, as it says here, refers to a movement often violent to overthrow an old regime and effect complete change in the fundamental institutions of society. So effectively, a revolution is the people uprising and overthrowing a government. And we've seen that through history, through places like Cambodia and through Africa and so on. But I like the idea, because I kind of feel like the old regime that we have mentally that stops us achieving anything is the one that's inside our heads. And it's the one that's holding us back the most. Now, despite what we may think, other people don't tend to hold us back anywhere near as much as we think they do. It's us and the way we react to situations. And that's a hard concept for people to get their head around, purely because it doesn't feel good to think that it's us that's stopping ourselves from achieving things. And we're quite convinced sometimes that we are desperate to achieve something. And the truth is that that's not always the case. It's not that we're not desperate. We just might not have the tools or the systems in place. And we get into a bit of, for want of a better description, self-sabotage, often through just lack of knowledge or lack of willingness to take an action, or don't want to upset other people and so on. So I just came up with this idea. For me personally, this was before I ever taught anyone this stuff, around a New Year's revolution. And the first time I actually taught this to a group was at the beginning, I think, of 2016 or 2017, I can't remember. And I've kept all of the videos from that one, and I went back and watched them more recently and thought, this is a fantastic program. And the way we interacted with people over a longer period of time. We were putting content in this private group daily. I had specialist people coming in, old mates of mine, former SAS soldiers, mentors of mine. Alyssa herself came in, and we just had live feeds. Only other people could listen to and could ask questions about, and so on. So they were done in lives. So that was kind of where the New Year's revolution idea started. So Leanne, just saying hi, leaving PT, looking forward to it. All right, Leanne, we'll catch up at the other end of this somewhere. So let's go into, I guess, what is the New Year's revolution. So to me, a resolution seems more like a wish, and more like it would be nice if this was to happen. And certainly, I think we're a bit more focused on the reality of New Year's resolutions now, but you go back 10 and 20 years, and I remember, kind of like everyone else, having 2 or 3 things, or people would ask you, what's your New Year's resolution? It's to get fitter and healthier, to spend more time with my family, to focus on being better at my career. I was in the military back then, and what courses I wanted to do and so on. But they were kind of just wish lists. And if they came up, great. And if they didn't come up, so whatever. There was no real system in place for me to change things. And I didn't have an understanding as a young guy in my 20s that I had the power over this stuff. And I've spoken on the podcast before why that was the case for me, but I was a victim of the way I grew up for a long time, as in I bought into being a victim. It was it was a bad story. And the truth is, I know now it's not a bad story. It's just a story. Everything in our life is just a story. And we decide if it's going to be a bad story or a hard luck story, or if it's going to be a good story. That's a decision we make. And when I realized that, that's when things started to change for the way I do things. So this is before I introduce this to anyone else. I came up with this idea of the New Year's resolution and saying, well, resolutions are gone just because the word itself just doesn't seem to fit for me, and there needed to be a better system in place. I had this idea that I wanted to affect complete change in the way I think, the way I do things, the actions I take, the accountability I held to myself, the standards that I uphold for myself, not for other people. And that was another key distinction for me, is to stop focusing on outside people, and I will talk about that. I wanted to shake up the way I think and the way I take action. So, and I still do that today. Like, I'm far more advanced than I was back then, but I'm not someone that goes, well, that's it, I know all this stuff now, because I don't. I still get hit with challenges where I question myself afterwards and say, why did I react that way? What could I have done differently? I can be disappointed in my actions, but not beat myself up about it. And that's a chance to review and reassess, and then go forward and hopefully make a different or a better decision next time, or have a better reaction, whatever that may look like. I'm still human. Like, we have hard reactions to things sometimes, particularly when they go against our value system. But then learning to self-assess was something that I thought was really important. Now, the whole revolution idea of it being an aggressive takeover or a violent overthrow, I kind of like that idea. Now, at first, or not at first, but in time, people have kind of challenged me around the whole aggression side of this. And my idea is that I want to be aggressive with this. I want to be hard on myself about the expectations that I have of myself, because that stops me being the victim to other people, to my upbringing, to relationships, to anything. It stops you being the victim when you're willing to be a bit more aggressive with yourself. This is not with other people. Now, I think it's important to point out that none of this means that I'm unhappy. It just means that I want to continue to grow, and this is how I believe that that will happen. I'm not unhappy. I have a very good life. I enjoy my life. I just, like anyone else, will have some up and down days, but for the most part, I'm happy with my life. But that doesn't mean that I'm just going to sit and not look for new ways to continue to grow. And that's really what the revolution idea is. My other idea is I want to be constantly challenging my beliefs. Where did they come from? Why do I have those beliefs? How are they working for me in a positive, and how are they affecting me in a negative? These are all things that I wanted to understand about myself. And you can only do that by challenging your beliefs, not by defending them constantly. And then that looks at my actions, and I get a chance to look at myself, I guess. Talking law of attraction is, and I'm just very briefly going to go over this because I did a vision boarding workshop on the weekend, but a law of attraction is basically that, what you focus on is what you get, to the exclusion of everything else. So when people have problems and they dig themselves down into the problem, and I can't believe this is happening to me, and they're not really looking for an answer, they're focused on the problem. And so you're most likely to get more problems. And we've all been in that experience, whether we've recognized it or not, we've all been there. So then the idea for me was how can I get that to work for me? That was really important. So this is the thing, and this is a little bit arrogant of me, but what do I want for you in 2020? And I have no right to want anything for you, but if we're going to do some sort of work together, whether it's listening to podcasts or watching Facebook live feeds or interacting in this sort of format, what is it that I want you to get out of it? Otherwise, why am I putting the content together? If it's just about me, I can sit and watch this at home and come up with ideas at home on my own. So yes, it's a little bit arrogant for me to say I want anything for you in 2020, but I do. It's why I put content together. And what you do with it then, of course, is up to you. I don't own your level of interaction. I don't own your level of commitment. I don't own your outcome. And therefore, I don't own your results. And neither does anyone else. You get to own those, which is good. When things are good, you get to own that. I created that. But it also means you've got to kick yourself in the butt if you're not getting the result you want. You can't blame other people. So you can't have just the good and not the bad. So what do you want, or what do I want for you in 2020? Easy. I want you to challenge yourself. I want you to get uncomfortable. I push this whole courage over comfort thing all the time. I talk about it in the podcast. I'm talking about it in the November challenge. When I get to talk to some people doing the challenge already, when I talk to them sort of one-to-one or through message, or which I do a little bit of where I can fit it in, and sometimes even phone conversations or mates of mine who are doing it, or clients at the gym, I find that they're skipping the bits that are most challenging for them. And so I just gently try and encourage them to take on those bits, because I understand why they're not doing it. It's uncomfortable. So I want you to be able to challenge yourself. But at the same time, I want you to feel supported. Now, I'm not someone who supports people in a soft, let's have a hug way and everything's going to be okay. I'm someone who supports you by telling you the truth as I see it. That's my truth, of course, but this is why you're doing that. Why did you say that? What are you getting out of thinking this way or taking this action? I'm someone that tries to correct people's ships that way. I'm not the kind of soft, cuddly and pat you on the back. That style's okay. It's just not me. And I need to be authentic with me. And then people that know me and like what I do generally accept that that's the way I deliver things. I want you to change your environment in 2020. And that means, like, everything can be great in your life. I'm not talking about walking out in your relationship, grabbing the kids and running if you've got kids, walking out of your business. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm just saying there are things, even when things are good, you can be adding other good elements into your environment. There's other people, there's mentors, there's someone that you could be dragging into your environment that would add some value to you and that you can add value to them. So changing your environment, constantly challenging yourself in that way is a good thing as well. I want you to be open to new ways of doing things. And not just that, as I've written here, new ways of doing and being, because doing is the action, but being is who I am. So sometimes if we can challenge how we are being in this world, it will create a different energy around us. So if we're someone that's overly judgmental and looks at external sources and tells them where they're going wrong as if we've got it all together, what if we're in a more accepting mode, let them kind of have their say, they don't feel as judged? That's a different way of being. So it's a tricky one, and it's probably not one I'll get into tonight, but it just is something that I'd love to challenge you on. I would love for you to focus on yourself and not the externals. Every time you look at anything in your journals, in your what's going on in your world, in the your goals, and then why you're not achieving things, every time that happens outside of you, it's if someone else would communicate better, if my boss would do this, if my partner would do that, if the kids would act this way towards me. Anytime you're doing that, you are not having control of focusing on the one thing in this world that you have 100% control over, which is yourself. So I really want that to be something that you click back into every time you can. And we all do this. We all externalize because it's easier to lay blame at the feet of other people. But every time you find yourself doing that, if you can live consciously and self-correct, it's about turning everything back to yourself and going, all right, what can I do in this situation? What actions can I take or not take? What am I responsible for? Because that literally is all that you can control. The next side of that is to be willing to try new things, to try things even if they feel a bit wonky at first. And as we get older as adults, this is something we struggle with. We don't like to try new things. In fact, it happens in our later teenage years as well. So even young Brady, who's on the podcast, on this webinar, you would even be getting to that stage in life where you don't want to challenge your own belief systems or what you already know because it doesn't feel great, and we like to be good at stuff. But the truth is, you're never great at anything the first time you do it or the first 10 times you do it. It takes time to get good at stuff. So if something feels a bit wonky, have a go at it anyway and just see if it works for you, because what you're currently doing might not be working. And so that's something that I think is really important to think about. I would absolutely love for you to believe in yourself. And this is self-confidence, self-belief, self-worth are things that are built over time. And they're built by having little successes, not in the big moments, but in the little moments that build successes. If you take time to celebrate, to have gratitude for those things, then you're a better chance of getting more self-confidence and so on and moving up the list that way. That's how it comes about. It's not like there's one massive goal, and when I hit that massive goal, then I'm going to believe in myself. You'll just never get to that massive goal unless there's an inordinate amount of luck involved. And luck's great to have, but it's a terrible strategy. So that's something that I want us to focus on. This is massive. Stop being edutained. I talk about this all the time. Edutainment, as most of you would know, is where you're taking educational content, so books, podcasts, audio books, videos, going to seminars and courses, but not doing anything with them. You are literally just being entertained by these people that you like to listen to, that maybe they speak well, maybe they have great content, maybe they resonate with you. But if there's no action behind it, that whilst it's educational content, you are just using it for entertainment. And I'd love for you to step away from that this year. And it might mean listening to less podcasts, reading less books, listening to less audio books, but taking more out of the things that you do. So when you listen to a podcast or read a chapter of a book, take notes in a notebook about how can this apply to my life? What can I do with this? How can I actually use this information? That's a great way of doing it. Last year, I read 12 heavily self-help style books or personal development books, and I read one a month. And the truth is, whilst it was interesting, it was too much. And the reason it was too much is that you can't maintain all of that information. Like, it's back there somewhere, but you're not able to use all of it. And so by the time you get to book 6, 7, 8, and 9, you've kind of forgotten most of the lessons in book 1 or 2. So I've cut that back a lot this year, and I've started to take notes on books about how they can apply. So stop being edutained. So how do we do all that, and how can I help? That's the main thing that we want to go through today. And here's some, some of this, but I'm going to add some things in. Today I'm going to cover some things that you can do in the next 24 hours. So there'll be actions for you to take out of this. Now, I'm not there to check up on you. I'm not, when I one-on-one coach people or small group coach people in businesses, I do check up on this stuff. There's phone calls and emails to follow it up, but you have the luxury of not receiving that phone call or that check-in. So therefore, if you do nothing in the next 24 hours, I can't own that, but I am going to challenge you to do that anyway. So some things to do in the next 24 hours. Of course, I have the Building Better Humans Project podcast. I've just literally recorded the 375th episode. So there's always going to be those. There is some ongoings, 3 of those a week, plus an interview at the end of each week. Last week's interview with Louise was cracking, and the next one is a really good one as well. Facebook live feeds, I'm going to commit to those weekly when I'm not out on adventures. I used to do them weekly a few years ago. I got away from that a little bit. Now, I'm no different than anyone else. I'm fairly confident, but I'm no different in that there are times when I think, why am I doing this? Like, I'm just another opinionated person sitting there putting myself out onto a live feed. But I know there's value in the stuff that I talk about for someone. And every time I've done something, I'll have at least one person who will reach out and say, something that you said after all this time I've been listening, something that you said on this one time triggered something for me. And that's really important to me. So I get that when I do live feeds and that, there are no doubt there are people out there that go, not this bloke again, but they can scroll past. So I've got to get over any limiting beliefs I have around myself to say, I'm going to continue to do these live feeds, etc. So they will be committed to weekly going forward. I do private coaching. I don't have any of that available at the moment. So this is not to sell this to you. It's just letting you know ways that I'm helping people do stuff. Group coaching. So I do a monthly when I'm home. I do monthly at Project 180 in Brisbane. And this is why I'm doing a webinar, because I thought the coaching in Brisbane where people have to leave their home and come to the gym, or we've got an area there, a boardroom style area where I run this, but they've got to be able to be available on that given day. They've got to have nothing else on as far as work and all that sort of stuff goes, or family stuff. And it's only available to people near enough in Brisbane. So the idea of the webinar is that hopefully when I do these more regularly, even if it's once a month, more people will have access to stuff. And now I'm learnt that I can show you a PowerPoint screen. I can bring heaps of content with you or to you that you're able to take notes on because you're looking at it as we go. The New Year's Revolution, which is the private group that everyone's inside at the moment, that's actually going to become a paid group going forward as of the 1st of January, and it's going to run at this stage for 3 months. It may end up running longer, but the minimum will be 3 months, so that we've got 1/4 of the year to just build and build and build using the compound effect, building this foundation to set people up to have a cracking 2020. Tonight, I'm going to give you a code. This is just my little fun way of doing things. And the code is really simple. It's 24, 7, 14, 21, and 28. So you might want to write that down because that code will become relevant. Actually, you don't need to write it down because it'll become fairly evident fairly quickly. But it's just something that I thought about. I'm a bit eclectic as a thinker, and I was, through the middle of the night when I don't sleep that well, all these ideas are popping in my head. And this is what popped in my head of how you're going to get the most value out of what we talk about tonight. Because even though you might be sitting at home or sitting on your phone or however you're watching this, I am conscious that you have given up your time. And you've got no idea how much I respect that and how important that is to me, because I value my time. So I'm actually at home recording this because my 2 older daughters are away. The kids' mum's away. So it's just me and the kids here. So I'm still able to do this content for you and be home for the kids. And I've already cooked dinner, etc. But I'm conscious of my time and giving my time up. So my respect for you or anyone that gives me their time in return is huge. So I need to make sure that you walk away from this saying there was some value in that for me. Again, not just the edutainment. So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of this. And we're moving quite fast. I know I talk a bit fast when I get excited about things, but hopefully by being able to go back and watch this, and it still tells me it's recording, so we should be safe there, you'll be able to still come back and revisit this stuff. And taking notes is always a great way of doing things. So here's some challenges for you in the next 24 hours. If you haven't done this already, do it. If you've done it already, that's great, but there'll be pieces to it. So revisit your 2019 goals and write notes. What did you intend to achieve this year? No one ever, or very seldom, achieves everything on their list. It happens occasionally, but most of the time life happens, right? And we get that, and some things knock us off course. For some people, when they get knocked off course, they just let all their goals go and kind of the world takes over. And you kind of see that through the middle part of the year where people are already waiting for the next year to come in because that's their idea, I'll start fresh. But you can start fresh anytime. You can fall off a bike and get back on it at any time. You don't have to wait until the beginning of the next month or the next year to do that. So revisit your goals and write some notes around them. What goals worked, felt good, you enjoyed them, and the process. So there's a little bit more than just looking at your goals. What worked? What felt good? Because that's really important, because sometimes you can achieve a goal and it might be something you really think you want. Then when you get there, you go, well, wasn't that great. Like, I didn't really feel that great for it. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I didn't enjoy the process. Maybe that goal wasn't as important to me as I thought it was. That's good to know, because we're collecting data on how we think and what things are important to us. Then also, of course, what goals did not work or did not feel good, or you didn't enjoy them, or the process just sucked. Write that down, because, again, we're trying to build a database of knowledge so that we can make different decisions and take different actions going forward into the next year. And we do this every year. It's not obsessive. It's just having some level of control over our own lives so that the rest of the world isn't pushing us to live a certain way, to do things a certain way based off what they're trying to achieve. I'd love you to revisit your ideal average day exercise. Now, for a lot of you listening to the show who've done coaching with me or who've sat in on any of my events, you should have done an ideal average day exercise. I will say this, I know a lot of people haven't done it because it is challenging and people don't like it because there's a lot of internal reflection. And so they make all these excuses about whether it's, actually works for them. I promise you this stuff works. It gives you clarity. So revisit it. If you haven't done it, I'm happy to send that through to you. Just drop me an email at the end of this. I'll put the email address at the end, but just glenn@180.net.au will do. Then ask yourself, is it still relevant? Because your ideal average day isn't something you do every year, but it's something you should read through every year. And sometimes things change. So as an example, with your ideal average day, you're looking at everything from walking through your house in the morning, what you're eating for breakfast, who's living with you in 3, 5, 10 years' time, somewhere in the future. There's not a hard time frame. Who are you waking up beside, as in who's your partner? What are you eating? What are you driving? What are you doing for a job? And sometimes those things change. Sometimes in life, things hit us that we don't see coming. Separations, divorce, whatever. Well, my ideal average day would possibly change as a result of some of those things. Maybe we get sick, we have a cancer or a tumor, and I've had friends that have going through all of that this year. So their ideal average day or where they're at in life will change because there's uncertainty now, and I don't know what that future pace looks like anymore. So your priorities change. So be willing to revisit this stuff. If it's all good, if you're still happy with your ideal average day, did you move towards it in 2019? And I know the year's not over, but did you make any steps towards your ideal average day in any way, shape or form? Do you feel like you're generally on the right path, even if you've taken a few missteps? Are you generally on the right path? If you're totally on the wrong path, then we have a chance to fix that if we take some notes about it. I would love to challenge you over the next week to spend at least 2 hours. So I know I'm getting outside the 24 hours here, but spend at least 2 hours in the next week on you and go through your year. I don't think this is something you do in 10 minutes, this stuff I'm asking you to do now. I think it's got to be, there's 168 or 168 hours in a week. So just 2 of them, even if it's in 20-minute blocks over the next week, spent on you, focusing on you. The highlights, the lowlights, what do you want more or less of? Understand all of those things about your year. They don't just have to be related to your goals, obviously. They can be all the other things that have happened through your year as well. This gives you the ability to gain clarity, and clarity precedes success. You need to have clarity before you get any level of success in any area of your life. Physically, financially, emotionally, spiritually, you've got to have some clarity around who you are, what you want in life, what you like and don't like, what you will and won't allow. That stuff is an absolute must. So that's the 24 of our code, and you'll be picking up where the code's going now. The 7 is in the next 7 days. Spend at least 2 hours in the next week on you and go through your year, which we started from the last one. Highlights, lowlights, what do you want more or less of, and to gain clarity. Then start to work on your goals list for 2020. Now, you may have already started on your goals list, but I'd love you to revisit that after you've done all of your check-ins for 2019. Where you're at, what's going on. I know 2019 is not over, and I'm not suggesting we wind down and go, oh, well, I didn't hit goals. I'm just saying this is a chance to kind of get a run into 2020 rather than just pack up shop. So start to work on your goals once you've been through everything that happened in 2019. What do you want from 2020? What is the most important thing to you in 2020? Is it time with your family? Is it success in a business or in a personal thing? Is it a relationship issue? What is it for you that's going to make you feel like you've had a really good 2020? And this is very selfish because I want you to focus on you. Again, not what do I want, my partner to do, not what do I want the kids to do, not what do I want my boss or my employees to do. What do I want from me? What do I want me, myself, to achieve and to do? How do I want to show up in 2020? What would make this the best year of your life to date? If you were able to sit back in 10, 15 years' time and go, looking back on all the years I had, 2020 was a cracker, what would make that a reality for you? And you've probably had some hard years in the past, but you've probably had some really good years. So look back at what was a good year that you can remember 5, 10, 15 years ago, whatever. And what made that such a good year? So then how can I get something not dissimilar to that in this new version of myself? Because you've changed over that time. So what would make this the best year of your life to date? And then what does that look like for you? So to make this the best year of my life to date, I'd be fitter and healthier and I'd have a good relationship. Okay, well, what does that actually look like? And that's where the ideal average day being updated slightly, that's what that's about. It's about what does this all look like if I was to walk through a day of my life having all these things that I say that I want to have. In the next 14 days, I want you to create your big 5 for 2020. So in the first 7 days, you're just thinking about your goals. You're starting to just get a bit of an idea around them. Don't just lock yourself down and say, I've got to have this done in 20 minutes. You're just thinking about it. In the next 14 days, we start putting pen to paper. We start visiting and revisiting 10 or 15 minutes every morning as a part of our morning routine, as a part of our meditation, our whatever it is that you do in the morning. If you need to, get up 10 minutes earlier just to create some time to put onto this big 5. So write some notes, start to put some things on paper. Once you've got that locked down, what you think it's going to be for the next year, then start to create your first 90 days action list. So from the 1st of January right through until the end of March, what are the action lists that will start to step me towards those? Because we all know that we start things with much more enthusiasm and energy as a rule than we finish them. And certainly with much more energy and enthusiasm than what you have in the middle of something. So you want to try and kickstart that first part of the year because that's where you've got the most energy, the most vibe, you're the most refreshed, you're excited about a new year, you're coming off family time, Christmas time, whatever it is that you're coming off. So now is the time to put some aggressive actions in place for that first 90 days so that you can hit the ground running, you're in your prime, you're ready to roll. Now, there's no pressure for the remainder of the year, but what can you be doing to both enjoy this time of year but also start to set the foundations for next year? I think it's important to focus on family time or me time or all of that sort of stuff. Go to the beach, go surfing, go camping, do all that. Don't spend the rest of this year. Like a lot of people switch off totally and that's okay for them, but I don't want you to do that. But I don't want you to also just go hard out, hustle, grind a million miles an hour and forget your family, friends, and the people that actually mean the most at this time of year. So absorb yourself into the community vibe of this time of year, absolutely. But just start to be thinking about the things that you could be doing next year. Try and find that happy balance between those. This is a big one. Take time to celebrate 2019. Now, no matter what's happened in your world, there is some good in there. What is the good in 2019? What's happened this year that you can celebrate? Now, it might not have been perfect. It might not have been everything you wanted it to be, but there would still be some good pieces in that. So track those down. Spend some time having some gratitude. There is unending research done on the scientific effect of having gratitude. So being grateful for the things that have gone well in your life. So you've got to celebrate some of those things or at least be looking for them because in your brain, that law of attraction that we talked about earlier is starting to think forward into 2020 as well because it knows the things that you appreciate, that you like, that you respect, that you're grateful for. And no matter how good or bad it's been, find the good and celebrate it. Then I'd love you to start working on a vision board for 2020. Now, I did a vision boarding workshop on the weekend. It's been a long time since I've done one of those. It's been a long time since I've set a proper vision board myself. And it inspired me, just being around the people in that room and seeing the passion that they spoke with and about their goals and the support that they gave each other. It made me also feel inspired to get my new vision board up and running. The vision board is, you've got to have all the other bits in place. You've got to have the goals. You've got to know what actions you're going to take. You've got to know what you want. You've got to understand your ideal average day. And when I say you've got to, I think it's the most effective way for then the vision board to come into play. And then that is a part of that law of attraction. You're visually seeing what these goals are in a visual representation, not in words, although you can have a few words. So a lot of people, particularly blokes, we can think this stuff's a bit wanky, but I'm telling you, this stuff works. There's a reason that people use this stuff. There is a reason that people swear by this stuff. And there are different ways of doing vision boards. And I will do a vision boarding workshop in this format to help people out with that. The exact same one I run on the weekend, I'll run in the next week or two, just so that you've got maybe 2 weeks, so that you've got time to do all of this stuff before we get to that. Actually, for those with kids, even in primary school, this is a fun activity to do with kids vision boarding. It helps set some tone for them about the stuff that works, the stuff that helps them get focused and motivated. It can be a fun process, a bit of cut and paste. Even teenagers, I've got plenty of people that have worked with their teenage kids doing this, and they've found it incredibly empowering, particularly kids going into those hard years at year 10, 11 and 12. Setting some vision boarding and sitting down and doing it with mums and dads and brothers and sisters is actually a fun and creative process that has a really good energy around it. So don't discount that. In the next 21 days, what I'd love you to now start to think outside of just your own goals, but write a list of important people in your life. Then write down why are they important to you. Because it's easy to say, you know, this person's really important to me, but why? What do they mean to you? Try and give yourself some deeper emotion and understanding around why they're important to you. Then ask yourself this question: how do you show that to them? Because often the people that are most important in our lives, we don't really show them. And if you find that you're having trouble communicating or connecting, particularly with loved ones, be it your kids, your partner, you know, your mums and dads, whatever the people around you, I would highly recommend, as a bit of holiday reading the 5 love languages. Now, it's not just about love languages, it's about communication and how different people communicate. Now, if my love language is physical touch, so I like to be physical touch, for example, and your love language is words of affirmation, you like to be told that you're loved, and so then I'm physically touching you all the time to show my love, but I'm never giving you the words of affirmation, which is your love language, then you'll feel often unvalidated. So what this helps you do is, if there's a breakdown between that connection between people, and again, this works for kids, it even works for employees, there's different levels of this book. When you can understand how someone else communicates, or what they call their love language, and you can identify this in people, and then you start talking to them in their love language, not yours, you'll get a much better connection with people. So once you know why people are important to you, how do you show that to them? And if you're not getting the result you want, as in they don't feel that they're important to you, you need to analyze why that's the case. So, and it could just be as simple as you're not communicating in the way they communicate. Then think about how could you show that to them going forward. Now, we're all pretty bad in this day and age of being busy with staying connected with people close to us. How often is it a month, 2 months, 3 months, you realise you haven't spoken to someone, a significant incident happens and you think, oh, I wish I'd spoken to them, or now's the time to contact them because of, you know, a health concern or other reason. And I think we all do that. So ask yourself, how could you show them going forward how important they are to you? You're making this about them. This is the only time I'm externalizing any of my process, is when I'm putting something onto other people in a positive light, not when I'm asking them to change so that I can feel better about life. The next 28 days, and then we've done the 24, which is 24 hours, 7, 14, 21. Now in the next 28 days, this is your challenge. Starting from today, you've got your 24-hour ones, but 28 days, write a list of mentors or people you'd like to connect with to assist moving towards your goals for 2020. You don't have to recreate the wheel. There are people out there that have done what you want to do, or that have helped other people do what you want to do. So look for those people. Who are the mentors out there? Now, these can be people that you can actually add to your circle. So there could be people that you actually have access to, you want to hang out with more regularly. These don't have to be, I'm not talking about mentors, coaches, psychologists. I'm not talking about any of that, although that can be part of the group. But it could even be just someone that you find inspirational, that you love to have conversation with. who you feel respects you and you respect them. That could be someone that you would like to add into your circle more from your local community. So don't always think you have to go bigger is better, although that's okay too. What is it about these people that you'd like to rub off on you? Now, there are some really good mentors out there that run programs. Let's think your Tony Robbins, your Kerwin Rays, Craig Harper's another one, Brendan Burchard. All of these people you might not have direct access to, but there might be things that you love about them, and they might communicate in a way that speaks to you. And if that works for you, then they're the sort of people you want to be mentored by, go to events by them. What can you pick up off them? And yes, there might be, Tony Robbins has 5,000 people at an event, but you can still feel connected in that event. You can still take value out of being in an environment sometimes, as opposed to just watching or listening. But other times it could be listening to podcasts, etc. But who can you add to your circle? Ask yourself, what is about them that you'd like to have rub off on you? So you know what result it is that you're looking for. They're always positive and upbeat. They're always really good at reframing a bad situation into a good situation. Or just whenever I walk away from an interaction with them, whether directly or indirectly, I feel better about myself. My energy is lifted. Those are all good things that you want rubbed off on you. It doesn't have to be that you're just trying to suck something off other people. It's what can rub off on you by being around those people. Ask yourself, how will you connect with them? Is it going to be a course that you go on? There's plenty of local courses in local areas, but there might be some other way. It could be a seminar that you go to. There could be a seminar that's free or that you pay thousands of dollars for, depending on who's delivering it. To give you a little tip, if you get onto your local community, you'll often find local business communities, local women's groups, local men's groups, sporting groups that will have seminars or people in that have done some of the groundwork for you. They've found people you've probably never even heard of in your local area who deliver fantastic content and cost bugger all. If you get onto Eventbrite, you can often look in there and put in a price. I'm looking for anything around personal development in my local area from $0 to $150. And it'll show you what courses are on, what seminars are coming up and so on. Be aware, if you go to a seminar that costs $0, they're going to try and sell you something. They're going to upsell you. And that's okay because they're giving you good content for free at the same time. So be okay that there's got to be a transition between the two of you. I'm giving up my time to teach you something for free, and then you're giving up time to potentially be pitched to. That's kind of how those things work. I'm not that much into it myself because my main business is adventure, and I love taking people on adventures more so than selling you into programs. So you don't get a sales pitch from me, unfortunately. Sorry. But be accepting of that when it happens. I've seen people go to seminars and they get all the information can for free, and when it comes time where the person presenting is given up an hour or two of their time, says, hey, I've got this program, I'd like to talk about that. They go, oh, here we go, I knew the sales pitch was coming. Well, what do you expect? They're giving up their time and good content for free. So you don't have to buy the program, but they have the right to actually sell that to you, or at least not sell it to you, to pitch it to you, and then you decide what to do from there. Or can you contact them directly? And again, that's your local ones. There are local coaches, local mentors that you don't have to pay a fortune to. Like, they decide what they're worth, and you decide if they're worth it, and spend some time with them. So this can be your psychologists, this can be your coaches, this can be people that work in a mentoring space for certain businesses or events, whatever. Like, how do you connect with them? Now, this is a really important part to all this. Do you know what you want? So again, some things that you really need to have as a basic to tie all of this stuff together is goals. What are your short-term goals? So what do you want to do over the next 12 months? And we've spoken briefly about that. Long-term, I think it's a good idea to have an idea of your 3 to 5 years. Understand that this stuff's all fluid. It's not locked in. You don't have to stay on this path because 3 years ago you said this was the path I'll be on. You can change your mind. Your circumstances change. What interests you and it changes. I know at 47, what interests me now compared to even when I was 40 has changed a little bit. So when that happens, be okay with, don't lock yourself in and go, well, no, I said I have to do it, so I have to do it. It's totally cool to change your mind, but at least have an idea of where you're heading in the next 3 to 5 years until something changes. And that's what I think the ideal average day is good for, which is what I've put there. And again, if you want access to that, I think it's on the glenazar.com website somewhere, but I'm more than happy to email it out to you. I've got no adventure on for the next couple of weeks, so I can actually get back to those emails. I challenge you to seek courage over comfort. I talk about this all the time because I think I first wrote this quote for you, that life is made up of a series of courageous decisions. So I think about where life has changed for me at different points. It's when I had the courage to make a certain decision. So the courage for me, and it's different for everyone, but for me, the courage to join the army as a teenager, the courage to accept courses as they came up from the army. You know, like courses in the military can be quite challenging, and I had the courage to go on those. I could have said no and sat comfortably and not done as much work or got promoted over the years, which soldiers do. Then they complain about that. But I had the courage to do those things, the courage to change careers and corps when I injured myself as an infantry soldier, to then go to medical corps and so on. So I initially wrote this quote as this: life is made up of a series of courageous decisions. But then I corrected myself. And the more correct really is, life is made up of the opportunity to make courageous decisions. So there's all these opportunities that pass all of us by to make a courageous decision. And we either ignore those opportunities or we take them. And the results that we get will vary drastically based on one of those two things. Now, just because you always take the courageous decision, or often, doesn't mean it's always going to work out in your favor. But in my experience, the probability is a lot higher that things will work out in your favor when you are willing to have a go, because you can only shrink through comfort so many times before the world still manages to get in, and you no longer have the resilience. You haven't built it to be able to handle that. So the more challenging you make life sometimes, the better it is in the long run. So life is not just made up of a series of courageous decisions. It's made up of the opportunities to make courageous decisions. If we choose yes, we get uncomfortable. That's the very first step of taking a courageous decision, is it's often bloody uncomfortable. And this is why a lot of people withdraw and reject out of this. Once it gets uncomfortable, they go, oh, hang on a minute, I don't know how bad I want this. So we get uncomfortable. We feel scared because we're making a change, and the people around us create a bit of friction, because sometimes other people are in their comfort zone too, or not even sometimes, often. Everyone likes the status quo. And when someone, the older we get, starts to make a bit of a friction on the outside of the status quo, it's like, oh, what are you doing? Because it starts to challenge my beliefs of how the world's meant to be, where you fit into it, where I fit into it, and what I'm achieving in my life. All these things are going on inside our heads in a group, as a tribal animal. So then what we do, as a pack animal, so then what we do is we kind of try and bring everyone back to the norm. So you will have friction from the people around you. And I'm not suggesting to get rid of them. I'm not suggesting that at all. But just be aware of the fact that you will make them uncomfortable, and you can't force them to change. You can't even suggest that it's a great idea for them to change. They've got to come to that of their own, but you can't wait until they change for you to change. So you just got to be okay with the fact that there'll be a bit of friction sometimes, and that's going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to feel scared. But we also get some positives out of this. We get growth, and we are a growth animal. We are designed to continually grow in ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally. And when we do that, we're much happier and much more fulfilled. And I can tell you that without any hesitation, without any doubt, because I've experienced it myself personally. We get more opportunities. This is where the law of attraction comes back in. Every time you take an opportunity, more opportunities will start to present themselves. Or more importantly, you'll recognize more opportunities, because sometimes something that seems like a challenge actually is an opportunity in disguise. And when you step up to it and you overcome it, you realize it was an opportunity. And then obviously another opportunity will come along and that is disguised as a challenge. And you'll go, been here before, seen this before, I know I can get through this. And then ultimately it results in change. And that's really what most of us are looking for. Not in all areas of our life. You can be totally happy in your life and still want change in some area, to be a little bit fitter, to have a little bit of a better relationship, to make a few more dollars and have a stronger business, to whatever. There's going to be change that you want somewhere, or we wouldn't be sitting here talking. So the questions you need to ask yourself, and I'm nearly done, so hopefully I'm keeping you entertained at some level and not boring you, because I know it's not super interactive in this format, but am I truly willing to make courageous decisions? We all think we are. We all think that we love the idea of making a courageous decision because we feel strong and we feel courageous, but ask yourself really honestly, no one else is here to judge you on this. This is for you. Am I truly willing to make courageous decisions? Because if you say yes, then you need to step up to that when the opportunity comes. Is a desire for a different outcome in life enough for me to be uncomfortable? If I want something differently, am I willing to get uncomfortable? Let's put it into health and fitness. If I say I want to be fitter and healthier, am I willing to get out of bed and not hit the snooze alarm? Or is my health and fitness not as important to me as I like to think it is? And that's a really honest conversation we have to have with ourselves. Is it important enough to me to risk being uncomfortable? Is it important enough to me to risk rubbing people around me the wrong way? Now, I'm not talking about, being an arsehole here, but you may rub people the wrong way a little bit, and you've got to be okay with that. Is a desire for a different outcome in life enough for me to rock the boat? Because that's what happens. So I encourage you to do something else, and that is to start a courage journal. Now, this could just be in a section of your journal. So if you've got a journal, like an A4 journal or something not dissimilar, you can buy those ones that have got 5 different sections. You can put health and fitness in one. You can put, your personal development sort of mentally in one, emotionally. One page of that could be a courage journal. Every time you make a decision that you believe is a courageous one, write it in your courage journal. Don't overanalyze it. I'm not asking you to overthink it. I'm just saying, when you've stepped up and made a decision that you believe is a courageous one, write it down in your journal. Don't use this book to overthink or to analyze the decision before you make it. It only goes in here once it's made. So this is not the place we go, well, here's the pros and cons list. This is a place where you go, I made a call, I made a decision, I was pretty uncomfortable in that process, but I feel it was my chance to step up and have courage over comfort. That's when it goes into your book. And there's a reason for this. Every so often, go back in and pop in a few notes about how this decision turned out. So you make the decision now. Where it's going to most show is in about the 6-month mark. It's good to look back and go, all right, I made that decision. 6 months later, how did that turn out? You can use some markers along the way, definitely, but how did that turn out? How do I think and feel about that decision now that I've got some hindsight? Was it a good decision? Was it a bad decision? Could I have done it differently? Because if you can understand those benchmarks, it gives you the ability to make better decisions next time. And that is super important. So it allows you to strengthen your courage decision-making muscles and make more courageous decisions down the track. So having the ability to make courageous decisions is no different than trying to get fitter and healthier in the gym. You've got to exercise those muscles. It's use it or lose it. And the more you exercise those muscles, the more uncomfortable you get in that process, the more you apply different loads to your body and different stresses, then the fitter and stronger it becomes. Well, this is no different. So the more times that you make courageous decisions, that you get uncomfortable, that you flex that decision-making muscle, the stronger it becomes next time to take on the same or bigger challenges or more courageous decisions. But it also allows you to adjust future decisions with actual data around these decisions, as opposed to thoughts and feelings, which are often very much based on emotions rather than facts. So the idea here is that when you're writing this down and when you review it over the next 6 months, and particularly at the 6-month mark, and you decide if it was a good or a bad decision, did I get the outcome I intended or that I wanted or that I believed would come from this? If not, why not? Could I have done something different? Was the decision okay, but I didn't follow it through fully? Write all that stuff down. Then you get to say, all right, going forward, what would I do differently? And when the opportunity comes going forward, do something differently, as opposed to going forward if you don't write all this down and going, oh, I remember last time it all turned out really bad. Now, maybe it didn't all turn out really bad. Maybe it didn't turn out just exactly the way you wanted. So we normally are processing things using emotions rather than facts. It's feelings. That just didn't feel good. But what's the facts around it? What actually happened? What was the end result? What were the actions I took that got me to the end result? So that's why your courage journal is a good idea, or to have some pages in your courage journal. And trust me, it won't be overloaded because we don't make that many courageous decisions that often, particularly if you're not used to it. But we're going to make some. So let's do some work. I will post this video, all going well, into the New Year's Revolution group. Go back and watch it as often as you want to or need to so that you can get this work done. And what you need to do in the next 24 hours, the next 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 28 days, your courage journal, get all of these systems in place before the new year starts. You don't have to be militant about this. You don't have to be over-disciplined about this. I just want you to start taking some action around this. So I'll post this in the group for that purpose. Refer back and go over your notes. It's okay to write and rewrite things. You think about when you're at uni, for those that have been to uni, you don't write an essay once and hand it in and walk away from it. You go back over it numerous times to make sure that the structure is right, the wording is right, it's fitting in the right areas, you've referenced it correctly, and have I answered the questions that were asked of me? So you can't expect to do things around your life any differently. You can't just, it's not a one and done thing. So that's important to know. Next webinar, I'm thinking will be the same time next week, or it could be in 2 weeks' time. So just let me have a think about that. But it'll be a new link, and I'll post a new link inside the group, and I'll post it publicly as well. Once I kick off the New Year's revolution in earnest, properly, then these links will just go in there for the people who are actually in that group as part of the group coaching, and it will have the ability to answer questions that are asked throughout the week to make sure that we're helping keep each other accountable and on track. But for now, it'll either be next week or the week after. Vision boarding, law of attraction, that's what we're going to talk about in the next one. So I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks, because that was the 14-day mark where I asked for that to come in, just to give you time to work on that. But if there's something specifically that people want covered, I may still do another one next week if you're getting value out of this. Guys, I value your feedback as much as I value your time. So based off what you've learned tonight, sometime over the next 24 hours to 7 days, I would love an email off you just to tell me what value, if any, you got out of it, what things you are looking to implement straight away, and so on. I just want to know that there is value in this, because then I can shape what the next one's going to look like. This is not a bouncing ball model of coaching. That is not how I operate. I like to operate based on what do you actually want to know? What is most useful to you? What challenges are you experiencing at the moment that I might be able to give you a reframe to overcome? That's the most important thing for me. And that brings me to the end of this little webinar. So I just want to see, has anyone got any questions around that? Everyone's happy with what we've covered. I'm going to put this up, as I say. I haven't said hello to everyone because I just got talking. Diane, it's good to see you on. David, g'day, mate. Kim, good to see you in here too, mate. Just going through. Cherie, you made it. Excellent. I am recording, Cherie. I've managed to score that. So I think I've got all of that right. So this is an interesting thing, and something, if I was to look at the first thing for you guys to think about from a gratitude point of view of your own actions, it's that there was over 30 people subscribed to be in here tonight, and there's 9 of you that have turned up, which is really interesting. That's about right statistically. 1/3, actually, it's probably a bit high. I once did a webinar with another guy, as in I was just sitting in on it, and he had something like 40 registrants, and I think 2 or 3 people turned up. And then people messaged him and said, oh, it was a wrong time. It was like, you literally can't make life any easier for people than to put this in a place where you can be sitting on your phone, where you can be sitting on your computer. You can put your headphones on so the rest of the family don't have to go through what you're going through if they're not into it, whatever. You could be plugging it into your car and listening to it on the way home. So we make this as easy as possible. And sometimes people still won't follow through with an action that they said they were going to take. So give yourself a little bit of gratitude around the fact that you are able to make decisions. Be cognizant of the fact that you made a decision and you followed through with it. And I think that's important, because the people who are not doing that are probably going to have a 2020 not dissimilar to a 2019 or 2018 or 2017 and go back as far as you want. That's where we don't get fulfillment. So that's just something that I would love for you to think about. Now, I'm just going to jump up. There's something in the chat there. Brady, thank you. Easy. That was an easy one. You're welcome, mate, and I'll get back to the email to you. All right, team, I'm going to sign off there. Hopefully, this does say it's recording. Now I'm hoping that it actually saves somewhere in the computer. I don't know how that works, and then I'll get it uploaded for you guys. Thanks again for tuning in. Looking forward to sharing more with you in time. And I will sign out somehow. Oh, here we go. End meeting. I'll catch you guys later.